Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths that is based on the advanced information given to us by the exam boards. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. For us to create the largest number, we need to pick the biggest digits for the start of the number. So the biggest digit is 7, then 6, then 4, then 3. But the question says it wants the largest even number, so we need to just swap the last two around to make sure that it is even. So our answer is 7,634. Multiples are just a numbers times table, so to write the multiples of 11, we're just going to do 1 times 11, 2 times 11, 3 times 11, 4 times 11, and 5 times 11. Now we're not going to do any more because it says it just wants the first 5, so I'm just going to write those down in a list with commas, separating them. So we can either use the calculator to work out what 1.2 cubed is, or we can do 1.2 times 1.2 times 1.2. Now if you want to use the calculator to go straight there, you're going to press or type in 1.2, and then normally there's a button that looks like this, X with a little 3, okay, and that will give you the answer. Or if you're not sure how to do that, you can times it by itself 3 times, and you get the answer 1.728. So we're going to start by writing 5 over 9 as a decimal, and to do that we just need to do 5 divided by 9, which will be 0.5 recurring. And to convert between a decimal and a percentage, we just times by 100. So we're going to get that 0.5 recurring, and we're going to times it by 100, and that will equal 55.555 recurring. And to the nearest percent, that's going to be 56, because that 5 will move that 5 up by 1. So for this question we need to convert the percentage to a decimal. So to do that we get that 8.9%, and we just divide by 100. And so that will give us 0.089. And so we get that 0.089. Of normally means times in maths, so we're just going to times that by 457, and that will give us 40.67. When a number is next to a letter, we actually have a times sign there, so I'm going to rewrite this question as 4 times A times 9 times B. What I'm going to do is put the numbers together, so 4 times 9, and then put the letters at the end. Now 4 times 9 is 36, so it would be 36 times A times B, and in algebra we don't put the times signs, so it's 36AB. So 55% is the same as 55 over 100. And what I can do is I can divide top of the fraction by 5, and so that is going to equal 11 over 20. Now in total there are 20 squares here, because there's 5 across and 4 down. 5 times 4 is 20. And if there's 20 squares and we're looking to shade in 11 20ths, it's just going to be 11 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So firstly we're going to work out what the percentage increases are as a multiplier. So we start off with 100%. Jane has a 1.2% interest pay rise, sorry, and so that would be 101.2%, and we divide that by 100 to make it a multiplier. So the multiplier is 1.012. So we get the 20,000, times it by 1.012, and that gives us 240. Next we do the same for Lenny, so that is Jane. And so let's do Lenny. And so that's 100% plus the 1.5% will be 101.5%. Make that a multiplier, 101.5%. We divide that by 100, which gives us 1.015. And then finally what we do is we get the 17,000 times it by the multiplier. And when we do that, we get 255. So Lenny has 255, Jane has 240. So it says which of the employees has a larger pay increase and by how much. So the answer will be Lenny, and it's by £15 because that's the difference between these. So with this question, I'm just going to write it out a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. And one of my rules is if you've ever got a fraction or a set of brackets in a question you're trying to solve, always get rid of those first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do myself a little grid to be able to solve these brackets. So we've got a 3 there, 6x and minus 11, and we're timesing them. And we're just going to multiply out the brackets. And if you've got a different technique to do this, that's absolutely fine, use that. 3 times 6x is 18x. 3 times minus 11 is minus 33. So we're just going to rewrite this as 18x minus 33. Now we are solving, so we're going to put our solving lines in. And the first thing I want to deal with is this take away 33. So we're going to do the opposite of that, the inverse, which is plus 33. And whatever you do to the left hand side, you have to do to the right hand side. So we're going to add 33 to both sides. We're left with the 18x on the left hand side because we've got rid of the minus 33. And on the right hand side, we've got 180. Next, we want to get rid of this times 18. So we're going to do that by dividing both sides by 18. On the left hand side, we're left with our x. On the right hand side, we're doing 180 divided by 18, which is 10. So our answer is x equals 10. So you do need to know the parts of a circle. So the full distance around the circle is called the circumference. If you've got a little bit of it, it's an arc. If you've got a line across it, that would be a chord. And the part that's kind of trapped in there is called a segment. Then if you've got a line across the circle going through the center, that's a diameter. If you've got a line just going to the center, if I can draw it properly, then that's called a radius. If you've got a line that touches the circle just on one point, like that, that's a tangent. But in this case, we have a sector. So we first of all need to understand how much interest there was in the first year. So we're looking at what 41.3%, so 41.3% of 156 is. And to do that, we convert the percentage into a decimal by dividing by 100. So that'd be 0.413 times by, because of means times in maths, 156. And so when we do that, we get 64.428. So next, we need to understand what simple interest means. Now, simple interest really is simple. And the reason it's simple is it's always the same. So we've got the 156, and we've got the interest for year 1. And we've got the interest for year 2 will be exactly the same number. Now, I could do this a bit easier by timesing it by 3, or we could add it 3 times. Either way, you get the answer of, I should put equals down here, we get the answer of 349.284. But because it's money, we need to round to 2 decimal places. So our answer will be 349.28. So what we do is we notice that to get this 10, we add the 3 and the 7. To get this 17, we add the 7 and the 10. and to get this 27 we add the 10 and the 17. Whenever we have this kind of sequence, it's called a Fibonacci sequence. You essentially add the previous two terms to get to the next term. And so what we need to do is just simply add the 17 and the 27. When you do that, you get 44. So our next term is 44. Let's rewrite this expression, but with a time sign in. So v times w squared. Now w squared just means times by itself. So we can rewrite that as v times w times w. Okay, so we know v is minus 10. So minus 10. And we know w is minus 4. So it's times minus 4 times minus 4. Okay, so when you multiply, it doesn't matter which order we do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do these ones first. And I'm going to ignore that times minus 4 at the end. So minus 10 times minus 4, that's a minus times a minus, which is a positive. 10 times 4, which is 40, times minus 4. Now we're going to do 40 times minus 4, so it's a positive times a negative, so that's going to be a negative. And 40 times 4, well, 4 times 4 is 16, so 40 times 4 is 160. So it's going to be minus 160. The lowest point on this graph is here, and that's at point 6, and the highest point is here at point 20. And we're looking for percentage change or percentage increase, and the formula is change over original times 100. So the change between the 6 and the 20 is 14. The original, the starting point, was the 6 and times by 100. And that gives us 233.333 blah 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 percent. And this 100 technically is 100% that we're timesing it by. So it says it wants it to the nearest percent, so that would be 233%. I'm going to start by writing out all the outcomes. So I'm going to start with trout. So for trout, as a main, I could have had biscuits for dessert. Trout as a main, I could have had cheesecake for dessert. Trout as a main, I could have pancakes as a dessert. Then I'm going to move on to a curry for main. So for curry for main, I could have had biscuits, could have had cheesecake, and I could have had pancakes. Now, to work out the probability, it's the amount of successful outcomes over the total amount of outcomes. So successful for this is a curry and pancakes. So curry and pancakes is a successful outcome, so it's just 1. The total amount are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the chance of me picking at random a curry and pancakes is 1 over 6. It's really important when answering this question that we're really methodical. So we're going to start off just looking at steak. And I'm going to start off with the S. And we're going to pair it with the first dessert, which is the I. Then we're going to pair the steak with the second dessert, which is the mousse. Then we're going to pair it with the third dessert, which is the fruit. So we're being really methodical. We've done all of the combinations with steak. And so we're going to look at burger next. And we're going to pair it with the first ice cream. Then burger. And we're going to pair it with the mousse. And then finally the burger we're going to pair with the fruit. As long as we do things methodically, we don't ever miss any. To find the surface area of the cuboid, I'm just going to label the faces and do them individually. So we've got A, which is 24 by 13. So we're going to do 24 times 13, which is 312. Next we're going to do B, which is this one at the top, and it's 24 across and 8 is the length. So 24 times 8, which is 192. And finally C on this side here, which is going to be 13 times 8, which is 104. Now notice that the faces all have the exact same face on the opposite side. So this one at the back is also A, this one at the side is also C, and the one at the bottom is also B. So what I'm going to do is add up all the areas of the squares and double it. So to work out the surface area, we're going to do 2 times and then 312 plus 192 plus 104, and that will give me 1,216 centimeters cubed squared, because it's an area. The median is the middle number when the numbers are in order. Now it's quite difficult to do with a table, so we used a formula, and that formula is to find the position of the median. We do how many numbers there are, which I'll call n, we add 1 to it, and then we divide that by 2. And that shows us where the median is. It doesn't tell us what the median is, it shows us where it is. Now, we need to figure out where these numbers are in this list. So the first number is a 2, and there is 1 of those. The next number is a 3, and there's 3 of those. So 1, 2, 3. The next number is a 4, and there's 4 of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The next number is a 5, and there's 8 of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the next number is a 6, and there's 13 of those. Now I'm not going to do all of them, okay, because we're not going to be working out the median by writing out all the numbers, but I do want to show you where these numbers are coming from. So what we do is we do a running total. So I'm going to do a running total. The running total is just adding up the frequencies as we go. So the first one is just 1. Then we're going to add the 3 in the next row, so that's 4. Add the 4 in the next row, 8. Add the 8 in the next row, 16. Add the 13 in the next row, and that would be 29. Now, we use the running total because the running total shows us where the last number is in that group. Okay, so this shows us that the first number is the last number that is a 2, which is true, we can see it here. This 4 shows us that the fourth number is the last number that's a 3, so let's check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, it works. This 8 shows us the 8th number is the last number that's a 4, let's check that. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This 16 shows us the 16th number is the last number that's a 5. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And this 29 here shows us that the 29th number is just the last number, but it's the last number that's the 6th. Okay, so let's work out how many numbers there are. And we do that by adding up the frequency. So we're just going to add up all of the frequency together, and we find out that there's 29 numbers altogether. So 1 plus 3 plus 4 plus 8 plus 13. So using our formula, which is 29 plus 1 divided by 2. 29 plus 1 is 30, divided by 2 is 15. So we're looking for the 15th number. So looking down our running total list, well, the last number that's a 4 is the 8th number, so we haven't got to the 15th number yet. And the last number that's a 5 is the 16th number. So if the last number that's a 5 is the 16th number, then surely the 15th must also be a 5. And so our median is 5. We're going to first of all have to convert these both into the same unit. So we've got minutes and hours. That's not going to help us much. So what I'm going to do is pick the smaller unit, which will be minutes. So I'm going to keep that 50 minutes. And I'm going to convert 3 hours into minutes. That would be 180 because we times by 60. And I'm going to just remove the minutes now. And I can first of all divide by 10, and we want to try and make it nice and simple for ourselves. So divide by 10 would be 5 to 18. And we look at it, 5 and 18, actually there's nothing further we can do with that. So the ratio would be 5 to 18. To answer this question, we basically need to find the lowest common multiple of the 10 minutes here and the 15 minutes here. So we're going to start off just by doing the 10 and 15 times table. So it'd be 10, 20, 30, and 15 times table with 15 and 30. So the lowest common multiple is 30. So after half an hour, these buses will sync up. They'll both leave at the same time. And all buses start service at 9 o'clock. So it will be half an hour after 9 o'clock, which will be 9:30. So in this question, we basically need to add the 2 3/4 and the 2 2/5. So we're going to do 2 3/4 plus 2 2/5. Now, if I just rewrite this, 2 3/4 can be written as 2 plus 3/4 plus 2 plus 2 1/5, or 2/5. So we can add the two 2's together to make 4, and then all we need to do is add the 3/4 and the 2/5. So when you add two numbers with different denominators, what we need to do is get the common denominators. And we do that by just quickly writing out the 4 and the 5 times table and seeing what the first number in both their times tables is. 16, 20, and 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's 20. So we need to get the bottoms of the fractions to 20. Now for 3/4, to get the bottom to equal 20, we need to times the 4 by 5. And whatever you do to the bottom, you've got to do to the top. So times that by 5 as well, which will be 15. And for 2/5, we'll get that bottom to 20. So we times that by 4. And so we've got to times the top by 4 as well to make it 8. So it's going to be 15 over 20 plus 8 over 20. So we need to add the numerators. So it'd be 15 plus 8, which is going to be 23 over 20. Now that is a top-heavy fraction, so we can rewrite that as 1 3/20. And we can add the 4 and the 1 together to make 5 3/20. So the answer is 5 3/20. So to find the area of a rectangle, we just multiply the width and the length. So that's what we're going to do here. But whenever you have an expression representing a length or a width or anything really, you just put brackets around it. So we go u minus 2 times u plus 9. Okay, and the way we do this is with our grid. And just going to draw out the grid. And so we've got u minus 2, and we're multiplying it by u plus 9. Don't want too many for some reason. And so we've got u times u, which is u squared, u times minus 2, which is minus 2u, 9 times u, which is 9u, and 9 times minus 2, which is minus 18. And what we're going to do is we're just normally going to be able to add these ones together. So our answer will be u squared, and then we're going to do 9u plus minus 2u. Well, that's just going to be 9u take away 2u, which is 7u. So plus 7u, and then minus 18 at the end. When factorising quadratic, and this is a quadratic, so we've got an x squared term, an x term, and a number term, what we need to do is we need to find numbers to put in two pairs of brackets. And to do that, we first of all look at the number on its own, the 28, and the two numbers, we need to find two numbers that multiply together to make that 28. We also look at that minus 16, the coefficient of the x term, and we know that they've got to add together to make that minus 16. So something you can do is just quickly write down the factors of 28. And so that's going to be 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. Now, they can actually both be negative as well. So minus 1 and minus 28 is still multiplied together to make 28. Minus 2 and minus 14. And minus 4 and minus 7. But they need to add together to make 16. So we're going to check these to see which add together to make 16. So looking down the list, it's going to be these two here. Minus 2 plus minus 14 is minus 16. The first terms in our brackets are both going to be x, and we're just going to put the minus 2 in one of the brackets and the minus 14 in the other. So this question is asking us really to divide the 5 3/4 by 1 3/4. So we're going to do 5 3/4 divided by 1 3/4, because we're finding out how many of each of these towels, which is 1 3/4 meter, can be made when the total amount of cotton is 5 3/4. So first thing we're going to do is convert them to mixed numbers, to top-heavy or improper fractions, because at the moment they're mixed numbers and we can't divide or times if they're mixed. So we times the 5 by the 4 and add it to the top, which will be 20, and then add it to the top 23, and then do the same. 1 times 4 is 4, plus it to the top is 7 over 4. Now a little trick here is KFC. We keep the first fraction, we flip the second fraction, and we change the divide sign to a time sign. So we're going to keep this first fraction as it is, change that divide to a times, and flip the second fraction. Okay, whenever we multiply, we just multiply the tops, so 23 times 4, which is 92, and we times the bottoms, which will be 28. And now we need to convert this back into a mixed number. So first of all, actually we can simplify this, because we can divide top and bottom by 4, so that would be 23 over 7. And then make this a mixed number. So 7's into 23 go 3 whole ones, and then obviously 2 remainders, so it's 2 over 7. Now it asks us for the amount of towels that she can sew patterns into. Now the issue here is that she will do 3 whole towels, but then have some left over, but she doesn't have enough to create a 4th towel, so it's just going to be 3 as an answer. To work out the area of this prism, we need to first of all work out the area of the cross section, which is this part here, so this triangle here. So to do that, I'm going to do half times base times height. So it's going to be half times the base, which is 22, times the height, which is 14. That gives us 154. So the volume is the area of the cross section times the length. So the area of the cross section we've just found out is 154, and the length is basically how 3D the shape is. So that's going to be 15. So the answer is 2,310 centimeters cubed. What I'm going to start off by doing is rearranging this equation so that it kind of matches this one. So I'm just going to write it down. And we want the n to be -2. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my rearranging lines in, and we're just going to add 10 to both sides. Now, we've already got this line drawn for us on this graph. And so all we need to do is draw this line. So we've got y equals 10x squared plus 8x minus 2 drawn for us. We just need to draw this line, which is y equals 10, and see where they cross over to find the solutions. So y equals 10 will be all the way up at the top. Let's just make sure I get it nice. There we are. I need to move that up a little bit. There we are. And let's read off the values that gives us. So it comes down here and it comes down here. So the values it comes down to are minus 1.6 and 0.8, and those are our solutions. It doesn't look like it, but we actually have a quadratic here, and the reason it doesn't look like it is because we don't have an x term, but as long as we have an x squared term and a number term, we definitely have a quadratic. And notice something about this second number. It's a negative version of a square number, and that will always be the case because this question is using something called difference of two squareds. And it's very, very simple to work out. What you do is you put down two sets of brackets and you square root the first term. Well, that's just going to be x, and you put the positive and negative versions of the square root. So we're going to square root 121, which is 11. So we're going to put plus 11 and minus 11, and that's it. Now, when we expand that, and we're just going to quickly expand that now to have a look, it's going to be x squared plus 11x minus 11x minus 121. And notice that the two x terms cancel each other out, which is why we don't have the x terms. For us, you can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.